There are places in the cosmos where light goes to die. Not with violence. Not with spectacle. Just a slow, inevitable exhale like lungs that have forgotten how to draw breath. This universe had been breathing for 13 billion years. Now, it was learning what it meant to stop. Stars collapsed inward, their nuclear hearts stuttering like failing engines. Galaxies that once spiraled with purpose now drifted as pale ghosts, their arms unraveling into threads of cold hydrogen. Planets crumbled to dust without impact, without cause, simply ceasing to be, as if reality itself had grown too exhausted to remember them. Time, that most fundamental of forces, began to stutter. Civilizations vanished mid-sentence. Children disappeared before their parents could scream. Entire species blinked out of existence without ever knowing fear, without ever asking why. The silence was absolute. Not the silence of peace, but the silence of absence, the kind that presses against your chest and makes you forget what sound ever was. And yet, even in this dying realm, there were those who watched, who listened, who knew. Across the infinite tapestry of pantheons and higher dimensions, whispers traveled like ripples across dark water. The gods spoke in hushed tones, their conversations threading through temples of pure thought and palaces built from folded spacetime. They spoke of a prophecy older than most realities, a myth that even deities hesitated to name aloud, the last convergence. It was said that when a universe reached its final moment, not with a bang, not with a whimper, but with that terrible, quiet erasure, 3 warriors would be drawn to its collapse. 3 souls from 3 mythologies, each carrying a different answer to the same impossible question. What do you do when existence itself decides to end? The prophecy offered no clarity about why they would come. No explanation for what force would pull them across the boundaries of their own realities. Only the certainty that they would arrive, that they would meet, that they would clash. And that the outcome would echo across every remaining universe. The dying cosmos seemed to know this. In its final throes, it emitted a frequency that no mortal ear could detect, a signal that passed through dimensions like light through glass, seeking those 3 souls with an inevitability that felt almost sentient, almost desperate, as if the universe itself was calling for witnesses to its death, or perhaps for mercy, or perhaps for something far more dangerous. Hope. In the void between galaxies, fragments of abandoned space stations tumbled through nothing. Inside one such fragment, the withered corpse of an astronaut floated, their helmets glass frosted with ice crystals that spelled out equations no mathematician would ever solve. On a world that had forgotten its own name, oceans evaporated upward in defiance of gravity, rising toward a sun that no longer emitted heat. In the throne room of a kingdom that would never be remembered, a child emperor sat perfectly still, his toy crown tilted on his head, frozen mid-laugh for eternity. The universe was dying the way forests die in winter, not all at once, but piece by piece, life retreating into memory until even memory forgets itself. And still, the signal pulsed outward. 3 warriors would answer. They did not know each other. They did not know this place. But they would come, drawn by forces older than choice, deeper than instinct. One would arrive carrying hope like a torch in endless night. One would arrive bearing duty like a shield against the inevitable. And one would arrive dragging survival behind him like chains, forged from every god he'd ever killed. The universe exhaled, slowly, peacefully, without knowing that it was about to become a battlefield. Without knowing that its death would force 3 warriors to ask themselves a question that gods and mortals alike had spent eternity avoiding. If you could fight the end of everything, should you? The stars dimmed. The void deepened. And somewhere, across the boundaries of myth and reality, 3 souls felt the pull of something they could not name. The convergence was beginning. And the universe, in its final act of defiance, waited to see if salvation would arrive, or if 3 saviors would tear each other apart before they ever understood what they were meant to save. Beerus's planet was always serene, a small sphere of purple grass and crystalline waterfalls, untouched by war or politics or the petty concerns of mortal realms. It was a place where gods came to rest, to forget the weight of existence. But Goku had never been very good at resting. He moved through the motions of ultra-instinct training with Whis, his body flowing like water, his mind empty as wind. Each strike left ripples in the air. Each dodge bent space-time just slightly, creating fractal patterns that bloomed and faded in microseconds. Whis observed with his usual pleasant smile, staff tapping a rhythm against the ground that somehow existed both in sync and out of phase with Goku's movements. Then Goku stopped, mid-strike, mid-breath, his fist hung in the air. Trembling, Whis tilted his head. My, sensing something, are we? Goku's eyes were wide, pupils dilated. His breath came shallow. I felt ... Felt what, exactly? Life. Goku's voice was barely a whisper. Millions of them. Maybe billions. And then he pressed a hand to his chest, as if trying to hold something inside. Nothing. Not death. Worse, like they were never there at all. Whis' smile didn't fade, but something shifted in his eyes. A flicker of knowledge he chose not to share. Ah, you've sensed the collapse. Collapse? Goku turned, urgency bleeding into his posture. What collapse? Whis, what's happening? Before the angel could answer, a low rumble vibrated through the planet's core. Beerus emerged from his palace, still in his sleeping robe, ears flattened against his skull in irritation. Would you two keep it down? Some of us are trying to. He stopped, sniffed the air. His expression darkened. Oh, that. Lord Beerus, Whis said smoothly. Young Goku has detected the foreign universe. Foreign universe? Goku stepped forward. You mean there's another universe dying? Right now? Beerus yawned, sharp teeth glinting. Universes die all the time, Goku. It's the natural order. Stars burn out. Worlds crumble. Existence has a lifespan, just like everything else. He fixed Goku with a flat stare. And before you give any stupid ideas, no. You will not interfere. This is not your jurisdiction. It's not even your multiverse. But Goku was already looking past him, eyes distant, feeling for that signal again. The absence. The void where life had been. How many people are still there? Does it matter? Beerus's voice gained an edge. You can't save them. The collapse has already begun. Interfering would be like trying to stop a black hole by punching it. Pointless, dangerous, and extremely annoying for those of us who have to clean up your messes. Goku met his eyes, and for a moment the cheerful Saiyan was gone. In his place stood something quieter, sadder, more resolute. If I can sense them, they're still alive. If they're alive, they can be saved. Whis chuckled softly. You really are quite predictable, you know. Whis? Beerus's tone was warning. Oh, don't give me that look, Lord Beerus. You know as well as I do that once he's made up his mind, the universe itself couldn't stop him. Whis tapped his staff once. Though I suppose the real question is, can you even reach a collapsing foreign universe, Goku? The multiversal boundaries are rather firm. Goku closed his eyes, breathed, let his mind settle into that space beyond thought, beyond ego. Ultra instinct wasn't just a fighting technique. It was a state of being pure awareness, pure presence. And if he could sense those lives across dimensional boundaries, then the boundaries weren't absolute. They were just ... barriers. And barriers could be slipped through. If you became formless enough ... when he opened his eyes, they were silver, calm, empty. I'll find a way. Beerus groaned. Of course you will. He turned back toward his palace, waving dismissively. Fine, go play hero. But when you destabilize 3 pantheons and collapse a dozen adjacent realities, don't come crying to me. Goku bowed. Not in apology. In gratitude. Thank you, Lord Beerus. I didn't give you permission, you idiot. But Goku was already gone, not through instant transmission, but through something subtler. He slipped between the seams of reality, the way water slips between fingers, his consciousness flowing toward that signal, that desperate absence. Ultra instinct guided him through the spaces where dimensions folded, where the membranes between multiverses grew thin, and when he emerged on the other side, stepping into a realm where stars flickered like dying candles, where time moved like honey, where existence itself seemed to be forgetting how to exist, he smiled, not with arrogance, Not with excitement, with something gentler, something that looked almost like sorrow, but felt like hope. Hey, he whispered to the collapsing universe, as if it could hear him, as if his presence alone could matter. I'm here. You're not alone. And in a realm of shadows and endings, Goku became a single point of light, small, warm, refusing to dim. He didn't know that two others had already heard the call. Didn't know that his compassion would soon collide with their duty, their survival, their entirely different answers to the same impossible question. He just knew that people were dying. And that was enough. It had always been enough. The Norns did not speak often. When they did, gods listened. Even Odin, in his prime, had bowed before their pronouncements, not out of fear, but out of recognition. They were the weavers of fate, the three sisters who saw past, present, and future as a single unbroken thread. To hear their voices was to hear the universe confessing its secrets. Thor heard them in his sleep. He stood in the ruins of Asgard, not the golden halls of his childhood, but the shattered remnants that Ragnarok had left behind. In this dream, the wreckage burned without flame, stones weeping instead of crumbling. And there, amidst the rubble, sat the three sisters, their hands weaving threads of light that frayed and snapped with every pass. Son of Odin, the first Norn spoke, her voice like wind through ancient trees. Do you hear it? Thor tried to answer, but his throat was tight. He could only nod. A universe screams its death rattle, the second Norn continued, her fingers pulling threads that dissolved into ash. Its collapse echoes across the roots of Yggdrasil. Can you feel it, Thunderer? The tremor beneath all things? He could. Even in dreams, his body registered the wrongness, a vibration in the marrow of existence. Like the world tree itself, shuddering under an invisible weight, the third Norn looked up. Her eyes were empty sockets, yet somehow they saw everything. You will go to it, should I? Thor's voice cracked. Father's echoes warned me. The All-Father is dead. Her words were not cruel, only final. His wisdom died with him. The choice is yours alone. But the cycle. Thor stepped forward, desperate. You taught us that existence has rhythms. Birth and death. Creation and destruction. If a universe dies naturally, should we not? Nothing about this death is natural. The first Norn severed a thread with her teeth. This universe does not die of age. It is being killed. And when it falls, it will poison the roots. Yours. His. Everyone's. Thor woke with thunder rolling across his chest, Stormbreaker vibrating against the floor where he'd left it. His chambers in New Asgard were modest, a far cry from the opulence of the old realm, but they had always felt like peace. Now they felt like a cage. He rose, pulling on his cloak, and walked into the night. The Norwegian sky was clear, stars sharp as broken glass. He could feel them now, the stars of his own universe, burning steady. And beyond them, in a direction that had no name, a darkness spreading like ink through water. Valkyrie found him at the cliff's edge. Couldn't sleep? There's a universe dying. Thor didn't look at her. I can feel it. Universes die. Universes are born. That's what Strange told us, right? Infinite realities. Infinite possibilities. She leaned against a boulder. Why do you care about this one? Because I can feel the people in it. His hands clenched. Every life winking out. Every child, every mother, every soul who wakes up wondering why the sky is going dark. And I am standing here, doing nothing. Thor, I have walked away before. His voice broke. I walked away from Asgard when it needed me. I walked away from Loki. I walked away from everyone I loved because I thought if I stopped caring, it would hurt less. He turned to her, and his eyes glistened. I will not walk away again. Valkyrie studied him, then sighed. The Bifrost is barely functional, and even if it could reach that far, it can. Thor raised Stormbreaker, and the axe hummed with recognition. The Bifrost was never just technology. Its will, intent, and mine has never been stronger. You don't even know what you'll find there. I will find suffering. And where there is suffering, I must stand. He planted Stormbreaker into the ground, and rainbow light erupted around him, fracturing the air. Tell them I will return, or tell them I fell trying. Either way, let them know I chose this. Thor, but the Bifrost swallowed him, dragging him through the spaces between worlds, through the cracks in Yggdrasil's bark, through the boundaries that separated his reality from the dying one. The journey felt wrong, like swimming upstream through frozen water, like breathing vacuum. He could feel the universe rejecting him, trying to push him out, as if it knew he didn't belong. He pushed harder, and then he was through, stepping out onto a world of ash and silence. The Bifrost's light faded behind him, leaving only the glow of distant, failing stars. Thunder rolled across dead skies, not from storm clouds, but from his presence alone. The echo of divine power in a realm that had forgotten what gods were. Where Goku had arrived with serene curiosity, Thor arrived with mythic weight. His very existence was a declaration. I will not let this stand. He felt something then. A pull. A presence at the center of this collapsing realm. Something ancient and wrong and inevitable. His grip tightened on Stormbreaker. If you are the storm that ends this universe, he whispered, then I am the storm that stands against you. He did not know that a Saiyan warrior was already there, trying to shield lies with light. He did not know that a Spartan ghost was approaching, dragging the weight of dead gods behind him. He only knew that duty had called. And duty was the one thing Thor Odinson had never been able to ignore, even when it killed him. The cabin smelled like pine and old smoke. Kratos sat by the fire, sharpening the Leviathan axe with methodical precision. Each stroke of the whetstone was ritual, meditation, a reminder that even divine weapons required care. Outside, Midgard's forests whispered under a cold wind. Atreus was asleep upstairs. Mimir rested on the mantle, dormant, but never truly absent, yet it was as close to peace as Kratos had ever known. And that made the rot's arrival all the more obscene. It began as a smell. Faint at first, like fruit left too long in the sun, sweet and sickly. Then came the sound, a low, wet creaking, like wood swelling with moisture it could no longer contain. Kratos set down the whetstone and stood, every muscle coiling with instinctive readiness. Mimir. The severed head's eyes flickered open. Aye, brother. I smell it too. What is it? Nothing good. Mimir's voice was grim. Check the roots. Kratos stepped outside into the cold night. Behind the cabin, where the great tree's roots wove through the earth like arteries, he saw it, blackness spreading through the bark. Not disease, not decay. Something worse. The roots weren't rotting, they were unmaking. Unraveling strand by strand, existence peeling away like old paint. He knelt, touched the corrupted wood. It was cold in a way that had nothing to do with temperature. A cold that reached past flesh, past bone, into the place where the soul sat. His hand recoiled. Yggdrasil is poisoned. Mimir's voice came from the doorway, where Atreus held him, the boy's face pale. But not by anything in our realm. Then by what? Kratos' voice was granite, by a death that spreads. Mimir's eyes closed. There is a universe beyond our own. It is collapsing. And when it finally falls, it will fall into us, into every connected realm. The rot you see is the first symptom. A contagion of non-existence, seeping through the roots of all realities. Atreus stepped forward. Can we stop it? We? Kratos turned to his son. No, you will stay here. Father, this is not a discussion. His tone left no room for argument. He'd lost too much already. Fae, his homeland. The version of himself that had once believed redemption was possible. He would not lose Atreus to cosmic inevitability. But as he turned back to the corrupted roots, a whisper threaded through the air, soft, feminine, unmistakable. Faye's voice. You must go, Kratos. He froze. Atreus heard it too, eyes wide. Mother? The whisper came again, not from any direction, but from everywhere at once. Another universe falls. When it lands, it will poison ours. The boy, the realms. Everything you fought to protect. You know what you must do. Kratos' jaw clenched. I am done fighting wars for gods and fates. This is not their war. It is yours. You have ended pantheons. You have killed inevitability itself. Now you must do it again, or everything ends. Not in glory, in silence. The whisper faded. The forest returned to its mundane darkness. But the rot continued spreading, slow and patient. And Kratos could feel it now, the way it tugged at the edges of his realm, the way it promised to consume his son's future before Atreus ever had the chance to live it. Mimir spoke quietly. She's right, you know. If that universe's collapse reaches us, I know. Kratos picked up the Leviathan axe, felt its familiar weight, then reached for the blades of chaos, still wrapped in cloth, still reeking of old ash and older sins. He'd sworn never to use them again. But survival had always demanded hypocrisy. How do I reach it? The same way you reached Jotunheim when every gate was sealed. The same way you entered Helheim when death itself tried to stop you. Mimir's grin was grim. You forced the door open. Atreus grabbed his arm. Let me come with you. Kratos looked at his son, really looked. Saw the boy's desperation to prove himself, to be useful, to stand beside his father as an equal. He also saw Faye in the boy's eyes. Saw every reason he'd ever had to keep fighting, even when fighting felt like drowning. When I return, Kratos said softly, we will hunt together. I swear it. And if you don't return? Kratos pressed his forehead to Atreus's. A gesture he'd learned too late. A gesture Faye had taught him. Then you will know I fell ensuring you could live. And that will be enough. He stepped back, closed his eyes, and reached inward, not to rage, not to fury, but to that core of absolute will that had carried him through every hell, every betrayal, every impossible fight. The same will that had let him kill gods. The same will that had let him become something other than a weapon. He pulled, and reality screamed. A tear opened in the air before him, not elegant, not mystical, but brutal, ragged. He forced it wider with sheer refusal to accept limitation, stepped through, and felt the universe resist him like flesh resisting a blade. He pushed anyway and emerged in silence. No thunder, no fanfare, just a man draped in ash and old sins, standing on a world that had forgotten its own name. Dead cities sprawled beneath the sky, where stars blinked out like closing eyes. The air tasted of endings. Kratos did not announce himself, did not call out to whatever power was killing this place. He simply began walking toward the pull he felt at the realm's center, a presence that reeked of finality, an ancient purpose. He was not here to save anyone. He was here to kill whatever threatened his home, to end the threat before it could spread. He was the survivor's answer to cosmic collapse, brutal, pragmatic, and utterly without mercy. He did not know a Scion was already trying to be hope. He did not know a god was already trying to be duty. He only knew that something had to die. And Kratos had never failed at that. The ghost of Sparta walked through the dying universe like an executioner approaching the scaffold, patient, inevitable, alone. And the universe, in its final delirium, recognized him for what he was, the man who had made gods bleed. It was terrified. The core of a dying universe looks nothing like death should. It does not rage or burn or scream. It simply unravels threads of reality coming loose, space-time folding in on itself, like origami made by hands too tired to remember the pattern. At the center of this unraveling sat a star unlike any other, a supermassive giant collapsing into itself. But instead of forming a black hole, it bled liquid space-time. Causality pooled around it in shimmering ribbons. Past and future touched, separated, touched again in rhythms that obeyed no logic. This was the heart of the collapse, the wound from which all other wounds spread. And this was where three warriors arrived, drawn by forces they didn't understand, carrying answers to questions they hadn't yet asked. Goku appeared first, stepping out of a fold in space with the ease of someone slipping through a doorway. His arrival was gentle, no shockwave, no announcement, just presence. He looked around, silver eyes wide with wonder and sadness. The dying star reflected in his gaze, and for a moment he simply stood there, feeling the weight of all those lost lives, all that vanished potential. So much, he whispered, so much gone. Then came the thunder. Not sound pressure, a rolling wave of divine force that cracked the ground and lit the sky with electric blue. The Bifrost tore open reality, and Thor stepped through, Stormbreaker blazing in his hand, cape billowing in a wind that existed only around him. His arrival was myth made manifest, a declaration that God still walked and still cared. He saw Goku and tensed. "Who are you?" Goku turned, and his expression brightened instinctively. "Oh, hey." "Are you?" The ground shattered. No portal, no light. Just a man stepping out of empty air, as if he'd been there all along. In reality, had simply forgotten to notice. Kratos emerged with the blades of chaos wrapped around his forearms, ash trailing from his shoulders, eyes hard as winter stone. His arrival was silence with teeth. He looked at Goku, at Thor, assessed, calculated. His grip on the blades tightened. For a moment, none of them moved. 3 warriors from 3 mythologies, standing at the end of existence, each radiating a different form of power. Goku's was light-warm, curious, alive. Thor's was weight gravitas and duty solidified into presence. Kratos's was absence, a void left behind when gods die screaming. Thor spoke first, his voice carrying the authority of countless battles. "This place is collapsing. If you're here to interfere." "Interfere?" Goku tilted his head. "I'm here to help. There are still people alive in this universe. And if there's any way to... there is no way." Kratos's voice cut through like a blade through silk. "This universe is a contagion. Its collapse will spread to neighboring realms. It must be ended, quickly." Goku's expression shifted, still friendly, but confused. "Ended? You mean? Kill it faster? But the people will die regardless." Kratos stepped closer, and the ground under his feet cracked. "The only question is whether they take our worlds with them." Thor's eyes narrowed. "You speak of murder. I speak of survival." Kratos met his gaze without flinching. "I have seen gods play with mortal lives in the name of cycles and balance. I will not allow cosmic fate to dictate the deaths of innocence again. If this universe must die for mine to live, so be it." "That's cold." Goku's voice had lost its warmth. "These people didn't choose this. They deserve a chance. Deserve." Kratos's lip curled. "The universe does not care what anyone deserves. But we should." Goku stepped forward, and suddenly the air felt heavier, charged with potential energy. "If we have the power to save even one person, then we waste it." Kratos's hand moved to the Leviathan axe. "I did not come here to save strangers. I came to protect my son." Thor slammed Stormbreaker into the ground, lightning erupting in a circle around them. "Enough, both of you." He looked at Goku. "You speak of salvation? Noble, naive." Then to Kratos. "You speak of murder. Pragmatic, hollow." He stood taller, divine power radiating outward. "This universe is dying because the cycle demands it. Our role is not to save or to kill. It is to bear witness, to honor the end with dignity." Goku stared. "You're saying we should just let it happen?" "I am saying we should respect what we do not understand. That's just another way of doing nothing." Thor's eyes flashed. "You call duty nothing? I call it an excuse." Kratos laughed a bitter, humorless sound. "You both speak of honor and salvation as if they matter. As if the universe will reward your intentions." He drew the Leviathan axe, frost spreading across its blade. "I have killed men who spoke like you. Gods too. They died the same." Goku's hands clenched. "I don't want to fight you." "Then leave." "I can't do that." Thor raised Stormbreaker. "If you both insist on conflict," Goku moved. Not attacking, just repositioning, slipping around Thor's flank with ultra-instinct grace, trying to create space, trying to de-escalate. But to Kratos, it looked like a flanking maneuver. To Thor, it looked like disrespect. Kratos hurled the Leviathan axe. Goku dodged, the weapon passing through the space where his head had been a microsecond before. Thor swung Stormbreaker, lightning arcing toward Goku, who deflected it with a ki barrier that shattered the ground beneath them. "Wait," Goku tried to speak, but Kratos was already there. Blades igniting, slashing in brutal, efficient arcs. Goku blocked, his forearms absorbing impacts that would have shattered mountains. And he could feel it, This man's strength wasn't divine. It was earned, carved from suffering. Thor descended with thunder. Stormbreaker aimed at Kratos, who caught the blow with his axe, the collision sending shockwaves across dead continents. You defend him? I defend order. There is no order here, only ending. Goku flared his aura, silver light expanding, pushing both warriors back. Stop, we're not enemies. Then why do you stand in my way? Kratos' voice was ice. Because your way kills everyone. Goku's frustration bled through. There has to be another option. Hope is not an option. It's a lie we tell children. Thor stepped between them, lightning crackling. If we fight, we doom this universe and ours. Can neither of you see that? Kratos and Goku looked at each other, then at Thor. For a moment, understanding flickered not agreement, but recognition. They were all trying to do what they thought was right. They were all wrong in someone else's eyes. The moment passed. Kratos lowered his blades. Goku's aura dimmed. Thor's lightning faded to sparks. We're not friends, Kratos said. We don't have to be, Goku replied. But we are here. Thor looked toward the dying star. And something waits for us there. Something that wants this collapse. All three turned. And for the first time, they felt it together. A presence ancient and patient, watching them with the detached curiosity of a scientist observing bacteria in a petri dish. They had been fighting each other. But they were not alone. And what waited at the center of the dying star was far more dangerous than their philosophical differences could ever be. Reality folded. Not like paper like flesh. The air split open with a sound that bypassed ears and resonated directly in bone. And from that wound emerged something that should not have been possible to perceive. It was too large and too small simultaneously, existing in dimensions human consciousness wasn't built to process. When the three warriors looked at it, their minds translated the impossible into something manageable. A colossal figure wrapped in flowing geometries. Its form shifting between crystalline structures and organic tissue, eyes that were also stars, hands that were also equations. The Arbiter of Ends had arrived. Its voice was not sound. It was concept, transmitted directly into thought. When it spoke, all three warriors heard it in their own languages, their own contexts, their own deepest fears. You should not be here. Goku stepped forward, instinct overriding caution. Who are you? I am function. I am process. I am the mechanism by which multiversal integrity is maintained. The Arbiter's form rippled, and suddenly they could see through it, see galaxies collapsing inside its body, see timelines being pruned like diseased branches. I am the Arbiter of Ends, and you are contamination. Thor raised Stormbreaker. You speak as if destruction is your purpose. It is. As it is yours, son of Odin, you are a storm. Storms destroy. Do not pretend nobility makes you different from me. Kratos' eyes narrowed. You're killing this universe. I am ending it. There is a difference. The Arbiter moved closer, and space bent around it like light near a black hole. A dying universe is not simply tragedy. It is contagion. Its collapse destabilizes neighboring realities. The fabric of existence frays. Tears spread. If left to its natural death, this universe will take 17 others with it. Trillions upon trillions of lives, snuffed out because one realm refused to die cleanly. Goku's fists clenched. So you're just speeding it up? I am performing necessary amputation. The Arbiter's eyes, if they were eyes focused on Goku, with something almost like pity. You are a protector. I understand your instinct. But you protect the cancer at the expense of the body. These aren't cells. They're people. The distinction is philosophical. The outcome is identical. Thor stepped forward, thunder building in his chest. You speak of lives as mathematics. Because they are. All existence is mathematics. Energy, matter, consciousness equations expressed in reality. When an equation becomes unsolvable, it must be deleted, or it corrupts the entire system. The Arbiter gestured, and suddenly they could see it, the dying universe as a web of light, each strand representing a connection to neighboring realities. Those strands were blackening, rot spreading along every line. See? You're Asgard. You're Midgard. You're Universe 7. All connected. All vulnerable. This realm's death will poison them unless I accelerate the collapse past the point of contamination. Kratos studied the web, saw the strand leading to Yggdrasil, saw the poison creeping along it. His jaw tightened. How long do we have? If I complete my task, the contamination ceases immediately. Your realms are saved. The Arbiter's form solidified slightly, becoming almost human. If you interfere, days, perhaps hours. And when your homes begin to unravel, you will understand what I already know. Mercy is often indistinguishable from murder. I choose the murder that saves trillions. Goku shook his head. There has to be another way. There is always another way. It simply requires more suffering, more time, more risk. I do not have the luxury of hope, warrior. I have only function. Then your function is wrong. Goku's aura began to shimmer, silver light bleeding into the space around him. I've fought gods. I've fought angels. I've fought people who said exactly what you're saying, that some lives matter less, that sacrifice is necessary, that the math justifies the murder. And every single time, I proved them wrong. The Arbiter tilted its head. Did you? Or did you simply delay the inevitable while convincing yourself otherwise? Thor slammed Stormbreaker into the ground. Enough philosophy. If you will not stop, we will stop you. Will you? The Arbiter's voice carried something that might have been amusement. You misunderstand your position. I am not your enemy. I am your salvation. If you fight me, you do not save this universe. You doom your own. Kratos stepped forward, blades burning. We'll take that risk, will you? The Arbiter looked at him. You, ghost of Sparta. You who killed your own family. You who drowned Olympus in blood. You understand the weight of necessary evil better than these two ever will. Tell me, if your son's life required this universe's death, would you hesitate? Kratos said nothing, but his silence was answer enough. Exactly. The Arbiter began to expand, its form growing until it eclipsed the dying star itself. You three represent interesting variables. Hope, duty, survival. 3 philosophies. 3 answers to the same question. And all 3 wrong. It raised a hand that was also a collapsing dimension. This universe ends. The only question is whether you die defending it. Goku dropped into stance. Thor's lightning blazed. Kratos' blades ignited Dot and the Arbiter, patient and inevitable, prepared to teach them what every dying universe eventually learns, that sometimes the math doesn't care how hard you fight. Sometimes the ending was always going to win. The dying star pulsed. The universe shuddered. And 3 warriors who had never lost a fight, they truly believed and prepared to discover if belief was enough. Spoiler, it never was, but they would try anyway. Because that's what warriors do, even when the universe itself is dying around them. Asterisk, the Arbiter moved like inevitability made flesh. Its hand swept across space, and stars imploded, not with violence, but with sudden, absolute cessation. One moment burning, next moment gone. No supernova, no fade, just erasure. Goku felt each death like a punch to the gut. Millions of signatures vanishing in heartbeats. No, he launched forward. Ultra instinct propelling him faster than thought. Trying to reach the collapsing sectors. Trying to shield whatever pockets of life remained. His ki expanded outward in a sphere of protective light, wrapping around a dying planet, holding its atmosphere together as reality unraveled beneath it. For 3 seconds, it worked. 3 seconds of borrowed time, of mortality defying cosmic law. Then the collapse accelerated. The planet didn't explode. It unfolded layers of matter, separating like pages of a book being pulled apart, each layer fading before Goku could even process what he was seeing. He was holding nothing, had been holding nothing. The people he'd tried to save had been erased retroactively, time rewritten so they'd never made it to that final moment. He'd failed. For the first time in years, maybe ever, his power had been completely, utterly irrelevant. Thor saw Goku's failure and felt his own certainty crack. He ascended toward a cluster of dying stars, Stormbreaker blazing, calling down the full might of the god Tempest, the primordial storm that had forged his weapon, the rage of collapsing galaxies given purpose. Lightning arced between stars, trying to stabilize them, to force nuclear fusion to continue through sheer divine will. The stars accepted his power, drank it in. For a moment, they burned brighter. Then they imploded anyway. Not because Thor's power was insufficient, but because the rules governing their existence had changed. The Arbiter had rewritten the constants of physics in this sector. Hydrogen no longer fused into helium. Light no longer moved at constant speed. Gravity had become directional, pulling matter into dimensions that didn't exist. Thor's lightning flickered, dimmed. He felt his divine essence draining, not from exertion, but from futility. He was pouring infinite energy into a void that consumed infinity without noticing. This is not possible. His voice cracked. Kratos saw both warriors faltering and did what he always did, adapted. He descended to a cluster of broken worlds, fragments of civilizations clinging to asteroids, refugees huddled in failing life support systems. He couldn't save the universe, but he could save these. He began moving between fragments, using the blades of chaos to pull them together, forging makeshift planets from wreckage, creating gravitational anchors with pure force of will. A child looked up at him, some alien species, 4 eyes blinking in the failing light. "Are you a god?" Kratos knelt, his massive frame somehow gentle. "No, but I've killed enough of them to know what they cannot do." He placed a hand on the ground, channeling every ounce of divine power he'd stolen from Olympus, from the Norse realms, from every pantheon he'd torn apart. Hold on. The fragments stabilized. Atmospheres reformed. For a moment, one fragile, desperate moment, life persisted. Then the Arbiter's gaze turned toward them. And with that attention came annihilation. Not fire, not force, just ... cessation. The fragments stopped being. The refugees stopped having ever existed. Kratos was suddenly kneeling on nothing, his hands grasping vacuum, his protection extended around absence. The child was gone, had never been there. The timeline had rewritten itself around its own absence. Kratos' hands trembled, not with fear, with rage so pure it bypassed emotion and became something colder, more focused. "You made me fail," he whispered. "You made me watch them die." The Arbiter's voice resonated across dimensions. They were already dead. You simply insisted on bearing witness to what could not be changed. Time fractured. The Arbiter accelerated entropy across entire galactic clusters, and suddenly past and future collapsed into the same moment. Goku found himself fighting in 3 different time periods, simultaneously defending a planet that had already fallen, that was currently falling, that would fall in the future. His body existed in superposition, each version moving independently, each failing in different ways. Thor's lightning struck across temporal boundaries, hitting enemies that were memories and threats that were prophecies. His mind couldn't process the contradiction. He was winning battles that had already been lost, losing fights that hadn't started yet. Kratos felt time loop around him, experienced his own failure on repeat. An infinite recursion of kneeling before vanished children, reaching for hands that would never be there. Each loop, his rage compounded. Each loop, the futility carved deeper. The Arbiter watched with detached curiosity. "You 3 are resilient. Most mortals, most gods, surrender to temporal paradox immediately. Their minds simply ... stop. But you persist. Fascinating. Hope, duty, and survival made manifest. And all 3 equally useless against the inevitable." Goku's voice cut through the chaos, strained but unbroken. "We're not done yet. No, but you will be." The dying star at the universe's core pulsed once. Causality inverted. Every action the 3 warriors had taken to save lives retroactively caused those deaths instead. Goku's protective barriers had trapped people in moments of erasure, extending their suffering. Thor's lightning had accelerated stellar collapse instead of preventing it. Kratos' gravitational anchors had pulled refugees into the path of destruction. They had made it worse. Every effort, every sacrifice, every moment of hope had been weaponized against the very people they'd tried to save. Thor fell to his knees. "Father, Forgive me. Goku stared at his hands, silver aura flickering. I didn't mean. Kratos simply stood there, ash falling from his shoulders, blades hanging loose. He'd seen this before. This was the moment when heroes broke. When the universe proved that trying was worse than surrender. He'd been in this moment when he'd killed his family. When Ares had made him the weapon that destroyed everything he loved, the Arbiter descended, its form now almost gentle. Do you understand now? I am not cruel. I am merciful. A quick death is kindness. Your interference only prolongs suffering. It gestured to the collapsing universe, millions of worlds flickering out like candles in a hurricane. This is what happens when hope refuses to accept reality. This is the cost of your compassion. Goku's aura flared, not silver, but dim red, frustration bleeding through his legendary control. You're lying. You made us fail. You twisted our actions. I simply allowed you to see the truth. Your power is meaningless here. This universe is beyond salvation. The Arbiter began to turn away. When you return to your realms, if you return, remember this moment. Remember what your defiance cost. And in that moment, as the three warriors stood in the ashes of their failures, something shifted. Not in the universe. In them. Okay, you looked at Thor. Thor looked at Kratos. Kratos looked at both. They had been fighting each other, questioning each other's methods. But the Arbiter had shown them something more important than their philosophical differences. They were all trying, all refusing to accept the easy answer, all willing to bear the weight of failure rather than walk away. Goku's voice was quiet. We can't beat this thing alone. Thor straightened, lightning flickering weakly. No, we cannot. Kratos tightened his grip on the blades. Then we beat it together. The Arbiter paused, turned back, and for the first time, something like concern entered its voice. Oh, you're forming a coalition. How problematic. The universe held its breath. And three broken warriors, each carrying their own impossible burden, prepared to try one more time with hope. Not with duty. Not with survival with something simpler. Refusal. Refusal to let the universe end on someone else's terms, even if that refusal killed them. They stood in the wreckage of their own failures. Three warriors who had never learned how to quit, staring at a problem that couldn't be solved with strength alone. The dying star pulsed overhead, leaking time like blood, and somewhere in the distance, the Arbiter prepared its next wave of annihilation. But for this moment, this fragile, stolen moment, the fighting stopped. Okay, you spoke first. Voice stripped of its usual brightness. I can feel people still alive out there. Not many, but some. If we're doing this, we need to be smarter. He looked at Kratos. You were right. Hope isn't enough. We need a plan. Kratos studied him, saw genuine humility, the kind that only comes after watching your best efforts turn to ash. And you, he said to Thor, were right. We cannot simply kill our way through this. The Arbiter exists beyond conventional harm. Thor let out a breath that was half laugh, half sob. So all three of us were wrong. And all three of us were right. Perfect. He planted Stormbreaker in the ground. Then let us be wrong together. Perhaps our combined failures will stumble into success. Goku managed a faint smile. That's the most optimistic thing I've heard since we got here. Don't mistake exhaustion for optimism. They formed a loose triangle, each warrior assessing the others with new eyes. Not as enemies. Not even as allies. As tools. Pieces of a puzzle that might fit together if they stopped trying to solve everything alone. Kratos spoke first, his tactical mind already working. The Arbiter controls causality. It rewrites outcomes. Fighting it directly is useless. It simply makes our attacks retroactively fail. He gestured to the dying star. But its power has a center. A source. That star? Thor nodded slowly. If we could disrupt its connection to the star, we'd need to hit it with something it can't rewrite. Goku's eyes brightened. Something it doesn't expect. Kratos looked at him. Your power. That silver state. It moves beyond prediction. Ultra instinct. Goku nodded. My body reacts before I think. Before cause and effect. If the Arbiter rewriting causality, then causality-independent movement would bypass its defenses. Thor's grip tightened on Stormbreaker. But you'll need more than speed. You'll need force. Raw, unrelenting force. That's where you come in. Goku turned to Thor. You're lightning. It's not just electricity, is it? It is the echo of the universe's first storm. The god Tempest. Older than time, older than causality. Thor's eyes gleamed. If I could channel it through you, I'd become a storm that hits before it's even thrown. Goku grinned a shadow of his usual expression, but genuine. Can you do it? I don't know. I've never tried to imbue another being with the Tempest. Then we learn fast. Goku extended his hand, ki swirling around his palm in intricate patterns. Feel this. My energy. It flows through intent, not just biology. If you can sync your lightning to my intent. Thor placed his hand over Goku's, and electricity arced between them. At first, it was chaos, two fundamental forces rejecting each other. But slowly, with painful precision, they found harmony. Thor's lightning began to pulse in rhythm with Goku's heartbeat, and Goku's ki began to carry the thunder's roar. Kratos watched this process with a mixture of skepticism and grudging respect. That handles offense. What about defense? Both warriors looked at him. The Arbiter will adapt. It will try to sever your connection, rewrite your fusion. Kratos stepped closer, Leviathan axe in hand. You need an anchor. Something that exists outside its power. And that's you? Goku asked. I have killed fate itself. I have severed the threads that bind mortals to destiny. My existence is defined by rejection of inevitability. Kratos placed the axe between them. If I channel that rejection into your fusion, we become immune to its rewriting. Thor's eyes widened. You'd make us fixed points, immutable. For a time. My power is finite. How long? Long enough. Or not. We'll find out. Kratos extended his other hand, and the blades of chaos ignited. But understand this. If I anchor you, I cannot fight directly. I will be vulnerable. If the Arbiter targets me, then we protect you. Goku's voice was firm. That's what all eyes do. Kratos' expression didn't soften, but something shifted in his eyes. I am not your ally. I am a tool you're using to survive. Call it whatever you want. Goku placed his free hand on Kratos' shoulder. We're in this together now. The three warriors formed a triangle, energy flowing between them, silver ki, ancient lightning, and the raw defiance of a man who'd made gods bleed. The fusion was awkward at first. Goku's fluidity clashed with Thor's gravitas. Thor's nobility clashed with Kratos' brutality. Kratos' pragmatism clashed with Goku's optimism. But slowly, impossibly, it began to work. Goku's ultra instinct smoothed the rough edges, allowing the energies to flow without conscious thought. Thor's divine power gave the fusion weight and permanence. Kratos' rejection of fate made it real, tangible, beyond the Arbiter's ability to unmake. Goku felt his body change. Ultra instinct was no longer just his, it was ours. His movements carried Thor's thunder, each strike accompanied by rolling storms. His defensive instincts were backed by Kratos' absolute refusal to fall. He became something beyond a warrior, a living storm wrapped in unbreakable will. Thor felt his lightning transform. It no longer simply destroyed. It moved with Goku's grace, striking not where enemies were, but where they would be. And beneath it all, Kratos' grounding presence kept the power from consuming him, from burning through his divine essence in seconds. Kratos felt something he hadn't expected. Connection, not friendship. He'd abandoned such luxuries long ago. But synergy. His power amplified by their hope and duty. His survival instinct no longer solitary, but shared. He was still alone in his core. But for this moment, the loneliness had company. The Leviathan axe began to glow not with frost, but with electrical ki, a fusion of three impossible powers. When Kratos threw it, it would carry Goku's speed, Thor's lightning, and his own rejection of fate. It would be a weapon that could kill inevitability itself. Goku's hair flickered between silver and electric blue, his aura a swirling mixture of storm clouds and serene light. This is incredible. I can feel both of you. Your strength, your pain, your focus, Kratos growled. Sentiment is for after survival. Thor laughed genuine this time. You know, Spartan, you're not as cold as you pretend. I'm exactly as cold as I need to be. Then why are you still here? Kratos didn't answer. But he didn't leave either. The Arbiter's voice echoed across the dying universe. You formed a fusion. Clever, irrelevant, but clever. Reality rippled, and suddenly the entity stood before them, larger than before, its form fracturing into countless possibilities. You cannot defeat function with camaraderie. You cannot rewrite mathematics with emotion. Goku stepped forward, the combined power of 3 warriors radiating from his frame. Maybe not, but we can damn sure try. Thor raised Stormbreaker, and it sang with tripled force. For every soul you've erased. Kratos ignited the blades of chaos, their flames now white-hot with divine lightning and ki. For my son, for all our worlds, the 3 spoke as one. We end you. And the Arbiter, for the first time since the universe began its collapse, felt something it had not felt in eons. Uncertainty. The dying star pulsed. The final battle began, and 3 warriors who had started as enemies became something far more dangerous. A coalition of the impossible. The center of the dying universe was a wound in reality. Not metaphorically, literally. A sphere of unraveling spacetime where physics gave up, where matter remembered it was just probability and chose to stop pretending. Inside this wound, the Arbiter waited, its form flickering through 1,000 configurations per second. Existing as pure function made flesh. And into this wound walked 3 warriors carrying the weight of dead. Worlds on their shoulders. You moved first. Ultra instinct no longer felt like a state he entered. It felt like breathing. His body flowed through dimensions the Arbiter controlled, slipping between causal threads like silk through water. Each movement left afterimages that weren't illusions, but actual alternate timelines, possibility made manifest. He was no longer fighting in the present. He was fighting across every possible presence simultaneously. His fist connected with the Arbiter's core, and Thor's lightning detonated on impact. Not heat pure force, the concentrated rage of collapsing galaxies channeled through Saiyan precision. The Arbiter's form shattered into geometric fragments, then reassembled. Impressive. You've achieved non-causal striking, but I exist beyond singular forms. Destroying one iteration is meaningless when I am... Kratos' axe buried itself in the Arbiter's chest. The entity froze mid-sentence. Because the axe wasn't just a weapon. It was rejection. It was the accumulated defiance of every god Kratos had killed, every fate he'd severed, every inevitability he'd refused. When it struck, it didn't destroy the Arbiter's form. It denied the Arbiter's ability to exist in multiple states simultaneously. For 3 seconds, the entity became singular. Vulnerable, real. Goku and Thor moved as one. Storm-infused ki erupted in a sphere around the Arbiter. And inside that sphere, causality itself began to tear. The Arbiter tried to rewrite the attack retroactively, to make it so the strike had never happened. But Kratos' anchor held firm, his power forcing the entity to experience linear time, to exist in consequence rather than probability. The Arbiter screamed, not with sound, with collapsing dimensions. Its voice was galaxies imploding, timelines folding inward, the death rattle of a universe compressed into phonemes. You cannot... I am eternal process. I am killable. Kratos wrenched the axe free, and divine blood, if it was blood poured from the wound, in colors that didn't exist. Everything is killable. I've proven that already. But the Arbiter was adapting. Its form began to fracture again, splitting into countless iterations, each one learning from the previous failure. It attacked across multiple timelines, simultaneously striking at Goku's past self in Universe 7. Attacking Thor in the moment before his arrival. Trying to erase Kratos from causality, entirely by killing him before he'd ever picked up the blades of chaos. Thor felt his own timeline unraveling. Saw himself fading, memories of Asgard dissolving as the Arbiter rewrote history. He roared, channeling the total storm, the primordial chaos that existed before the first gods, before time had direction. Lightning erupted not from him, but from everywhere simultaneously, from every point in spacetime where storms had ever existed. He became the storm, not wielding it. Being it. And storms don't have timelines. They simply are. His existence stabilized. The Arbiter's temporal attack slid off him like rain off stone. Goku felt the attack targeting his past and smiled. Because Ultra Instinct didn't just move beyond thought, it moved beyond time. His body reacted to threats before they happened, after they happened, during them happening. He existed in superposition, and when the Arbiter tried to erase his past, it found that Goku's past was already fighting back. His younger self empowered by the fusion's energy, reaching backward through time. The Arbiter found itself fighting Goku at every age simultaneously. Child Goku with storm-infused power pole. Teen Goku channeling Kratos' brutality. Adult Goku wielding Thor's nobility. All of them converging on this moment, this fight, this singular point of defiance. Kratos felt the erasure attempt, and simply ... refused. His willpower had been forged in the depths of Tartarus, tempered by the weight of murdered pantheons. When the Arbiter tried to unmake him, it encountered a soul that had already decided it would exist. Consequences be damned. His Spartan rage ignited not with flame, but with absolute, unshakable defiance. He became a fixed point around which reality was forced to bend. The Arbiter's attacks failed. All of them, simultaneously. This is ... impossible ... The entity's voice fractured. You are mortals. You should not be able to. We're not mortals. Goku's voice was calm, certain. We're warriors. And we've decided you don't get to win. Decided? The Arbiter almost sounded amused. You think will matters against cosmic law? It's all that matters. Thor's lightning intensified. Laws can be rewritten. Will cannot. Spoken like fools who've never faced true entropy. The Arbiter began to expand, its form growing until it eclipsed the entire wound in reality. Then let me show you what the end of everything looks like. It triggered the final collapse. Every star in the universe imploded simultaneously. Every timeline converged into a single crushing moment. The weight of an entire universe's death compressed into a sphere no larger than a fist. And that sphere sat at the center of the Arbiter's form, radiating absolute ending. Goku felt his ki being pulled inward, unraveling. Thor felt his divine essence draining, mortality rushing back. Kratos felt his power stolen from gods, earned through suffering, being stripped away layer by layer. They were losing. The Arbiter was right. Will didn't matter against mathematics. Hope couldn't punch through thermodynamics. Duty couldn't shield against entropy's final word. And yet they pushed forward anyway. Goku poured everything into Ultra Instinct, not the perfected form, but something beyond it. A state where he didn't just move without thinking, but existed without being. He became pure intent, formless, impossible to target, because there was no target left. Just the idea of a warrior who refused to stop. Thor sacrificed his divine essence. All of it. Every drop of godhood, every fragment of Odin's power, every echo of the All-Father's wisdom. He poured it into the god tempest and let the storm consume him, becoming not Thor, god of thunder, but thunder itself. Elemental and unkillable, because elements don't die, they just transform. Kratos did what he'd always done, endured. While Goku became formless and Thor became elemental, Kratos remained stubbornly, impossibly solid. He was the rock that oceans broke against, the anvil that hammers shattered on. He existed because he chose to, and no cosmic equation could factor in that level of sheer, bloody-minded refusal. The three forces converged on the Arbiter: intent without form, thunder without flesh, refusal without compromise. And the Arbiter, ancient and eternal, made a mistake. It tried to process them, tried to understand what they'd become, tried to calculate a defense against the incalculable. Its focus wavered, just for a nanosecond. But in that nanosecond, the fusion struck. Goku's formless intent pierced its core. Thor's elemental thunder detonated inside its structure. Kratos' absolute refusal denied its ability to regenerate, to adapt, to exist in multiple states. The Arbiter broke, not with spectacle, with silence. It simply stopped processing, stopped functioning, stopped being necessary. The dying star at the universe's heart pulsed once, twice, and then ignited. Not with old fire, but with new possibility. The collapse reversed. Not slowly, instantly. Entropy ran backward, causality unwound, and the universe that had been dying began to remember what it meant to live. But there was a cost. There always was. The three warriors reformed, no longer fused, no longer empowered, just themselves again. Exhausted, broken, mortal dot, and the universe's rebirth was consuming the space around them. Reality knitting itself back together, pushing out the foreign elements that had triggered its resurrection. Pushing them out. Goku looked at the others and understood. They could escape. Use the last dregs of their power to slip back to their home realities. Let this universe live without them, or they could stay. Become the seeds around which this new universe would form. Give their essence, their very souls, to ensure the rebirth was permanent. Thor met his eyes, understood the choice, and smiled. I came here out of duty. It would be poor duty to leave before the work is done. Kratos said nothing, but he didn't move toward escape. He stood there, blades lowered, watching as new stars began to ignite around them. After a moment, he spoke quietly. My son will understand. He always does. Goku felt tears on his cheeks. Not from sadness. From something else. Pride. Completion. The sense that for once, he'd done something that actually mattered. Kai's gonna kill me. Then we die twice. Thor's laugh was warm. Not a bad legacy. The universe's rebirth accelerated. Light poured from every direction, not harsh but gentle, welcoming them into its structure. They felt themselves beginning to dissolve, not painfully, but like ice becoming water, becoming vapor. Transformation, not destruction. Goku's last thought was of his sons. Of Gohan's gentle strength. Of Goten's laughter. He sent his love across dimensions and hoped they'd feel it somehow. Thor's last thought was of Asgard. Of his people? Of Valkyrie, leading them into a future he'd never see. He sent his blessing across the stars and hoped they'd know peace. Kratos' last thought was of Atreus. Of the boy who'd taught him what it meant to be more than rage. He sent his promise across realms, I will always be your father, and hoped it was enough. The light consumed them. And they let it. Time passed. Or didn't. In a newly born universe, such distinctions were meaningless. Eons later, or perhaps, moments in new civilization would arise on a planet that had been reborn from ash. They would look at their night sky and see 3 stars burning brighter than all others. 1 silver, 1 blue, 1 red. And they would wonder at the constellation those stars formed. It looked almost like 3 warriors, standing back to back, holding up the sky. They would name it the convergence. And tell stories of how, once, when existence itself was ending, 3 strangers became brothers and chose sacrifice over escape. The stories would never get the details right, but they'd understand the important part. Sometimes, the universe doesn't need to be saved by hope or duty or survival. Sometimes it just needs warriors stubborn enough to refuse the ending, and 3 such warriors had been enough. The universe exhaled, inhaled, and remembered what it meant to breathe.